Today, the Liberals have announced a 2-month pause on the GST on some goods and services, as well as a one-time rebate check of $250.
2 months, Canadians are going to get a real break on everything they do.
The NDPs say they will help get this measure through the House, while the Conservatives are already attacking it.
Today, what we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick.
So is this going to help Canadians, or is it more about helping the Liberals out of their slump? Is it a win for the NDP in any way? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down on At Issue tonight. Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj, and filling in for Chantal Hébert tonight is Kelly Carterman. Good to see all of you. Andrew, I have been wondering all day what you would make of this move, so I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. What do you make of both the policy and the politics?
It's embarrassing. You know, if you're going to go out with some dignity and some integrity rather than flinging billions of dollars at the public in hopes that they'll forget why they hate you. This is such bad policy on so many levels. We're going to borrow $6 billion to throw ourselves a party so that people can move purchases forward and backwards so they can take advantage of this. The biggest recipients, for example, if you dine out at restaurants, the more expensive the meal, the bigger the break you'll get. Well, who's that going to benefit? Is that going to benefit the poorest among us? Is that going to benefit the richest among us? We're going to give a tax break to people on alcohol sales. That's great public policy. We're going to give a tax break on snack food at a time of rampaging obesity. That's great public policy. It's going to needlessly clutter up an already complicated sales tax regime. We've got about 25 different sales tax regimes in this country, depending on whether it's federally taxed or provincially taxed or not federally taxed or not provincially taxed, and every possible combination of the two. Yeah. And now we're going to add a bunch of completely arbitrary categories of tax breaks again on top of this, and it's all going to last for 2 months. Why? Well, to tee things up for the election, and also I suppose part of this is you have to pass a bill through Parliament, so the Conservatives, who are now protesting quite rightly at the government's refusal to release documents, will be put in an invidious position of, why are you blocking this bill that is going to give goodies away to Canadians? This is just so cynical and such dumb public policy, it's hard to believe.
All right, well, let's see if anyone else has a different perspective. Althea, I mean, I'll put on the table that there are Canadians still struggling, even though inflation has gone back to sort of normal areas. And some people might say, well, this is kind of good timing for me, in spite of all the caveats that Andrew put out there.
Well, there's no doubt that it's bad public policy, and Andrew has laid out all the reasons why. But the question is it good politics? Yeah. A lot of the criticism about the Liberals' policies was, well, I'm not included in them. Like, I make too much money, so I can't do the dental care. I don't have children, so the child benefit doesn't apply to me, or the child care, child benefit every month doesn't apply to me either. So here is a much more generous tax break to people who probably don't necessarily need it, but will like to benefit from it. So there is a recognition that perhaps the Liberals have missed the mark in the past. A lot of the criticisms that they levied against the Ford government in Ontario about their obsession with booze, for example, is now also in their plan. So that's an interesting little tidbit to that. I do think it is interesting in the way that it squeezes the opposition parties. So for the NDP, they're having a challenge trying to distinguish themselves from the Liberals. But the Liberals want to show that they can get stuff done in Parliament, and they needed a partner. And so they did, and the NDP deserves credit for this, take much of what the NDP was suggesting. If the Liberals are serious, this will only be a very small reprieve that could just last one day. But it does let Mr. Poilievre look like the Grinch who stole Christmas, who doesn't want Canadians to have these goodies, who is talking on both sides of his mouth. Oh, he's against the carbon tax, but he's not for a GST rebate. So yeah. I'm not sure that the politics are that bad.
Kelly, what do you think?
I think this is gimmicky, like it was called when Erin O'Toole introduced it in 2021 as Conservative leader. And I think that was the criticism then, and I think it's true
by the
today.
Liberals.
Yeah, that the Liberals have now taken up. It's so temporary, and the lag time to this too. As someone who used to work in retail, I'm worried about all the returns that retailers will have to deal with up until December 14th. And then what happens in mid-February when this comes off? Do the federal Liberals expect that the goodwill from this will continue on, or are they thinking that an election will happen within the next 2 months? That's what makes me wonder. It also, on the policy side, this is the opposite of what we should be worrying about as a country right now when we're talking about per capita GDP and that kind of concern in terms of real productivity and those bigger economic issues. This is the foam on top of beer that's not going to be taxed policy. And I think there will be, trust me, if the NDP wins on this, they win on the fact that they suggested there would be no GST on diapers, which I can completely get behind and makes perfect sense. The problem is this is temporary, and I think a lot of people will see through it and will have concerns that it is just a temporary measure for Christmas.
Well, after the temporary measure, that's when your $250 rebate check
True,
arrives
true.
if you make $150,000 or more. Andrew, yeah.
Well, will it be temporary, or when the time comes, will they be under a lot of pressure to continue it?
Sure.
Not least from within their own caucus. So to echo that last point, you know, the reason why incomes are declining in this country, why per capita GDP has been falling for 8 of the last 9 quarters, is not because the government hasn't been handing out enough goodies. It's because we've got a suite of policies in this country that are retarding productivity, that are holding back investment, that are making it harder to run businesses, that are making it harder for people to earn income to get ahead. So those are the kinds of measures that the government that had any sense would be focusing on. You know, talk about playing to type. The knock on this government all the way through has been it's much more interested in playing distributional games than in actually enhancing productivity and growing the economy. Well, this just absolutely plays into that same stereotype, I want to call it, but basically the truth of it.